So now that the qualifying exam is over, and thank goodness it's over, because that was very stressful, I get to talk to various faculty members and figure out what kind of research they do, and essentially shop around to see what kind of topic I want to do my PhD on, write my dissertation over. And I also asked, I met with two people this week one guy I had talked to a couple times before. The second guy I haven't spoken to as much, but he does know who I am, and I have emailed him every now and again. And they gave me a couple different topics as to what they're interested in, and I just basically asked them for some advice, like what's the next step? What will my next year or my next 2 years look like? And they told me some interesting things. So I thought I would use this video to describe what that might look like. Sorry, I'm a little bit distracted. So these are the books that I'm currently looking through. I probably will not read all of these books, but some of these books I'm gonna read. So this semester I am taking three classes and a seminar. So the 3 classes I'm taking are Fourier analysis, convex geometry, and statistics. I did not have to take the statistics. The seminar, by the way, is a measure theory seminar, which you go in and you listen to people give talks, what they're doing their research in, make connections and that good stuff. It's fun, it's one of the best parts of being in grad school is getting to meet people and network and whatnot. But the classes I'm taking, I did not need to take the statistics class. It's in applied math, but I decided to take it because I thought that the content that they cover in those classes, or in that class, would be beneficial for me, and that maybe it would be pretty good to put it on a resume if, because I've had probability theory, and that kind of goes hand in hand with statistics. And I thought maybe if I get a PhD and I show people like, I took probability and statistics, then they'd be like, we'll hire you at $200 million a year. Obviously, that's not going to happen. But, it was something I thought about. The other 2 classes I absolutely needed to take, and those were the convex geometry and Fourier analysis series, or classes. So the first book that he recommended was, in the Fourier analysis class, he recommended several books, but of the 6 books he recommended, the Katz-Nelson book, which I actually have, I said that wrong, but of the 6 books he recommended, I had one of them, and I actually featured it on this channel in a previous video, and it's this one here. And I started reading it, and I read about the first 2 chapters, and I had to put it down because I had other things I really needed to accomplish. But now that I'm in the class, I kind of don't want to take notes, and I don't like taking notes in class. Sorry if I'm a little bit scatterbrained, but I don't like taking notes in class because I can't listen to the instructor and write stuff down at the same time. I really like to sit and listen to the instructor and then take notes, on my own time, or preferably ahead, because I don't like feeling lost in the class. So I'm thinking maybe I will stop taking notes. It's kind of dangerous to do that, but I think for these special topics courses, note-taking doesn't really matter that much. You should probably write something down. But I'm going to read through and take notes over the Katz-Nelson book here, and you can watch my previous video about this book to learn more about it. And these 2 books about Fourier series and analysis, this one was just lying around my office, and it looked interesting from just the front cover, and I wanted to flip through it and see what's inside. In fact, we can do that now. Let me push this back. Let's see, what's the table of contents? I don't know if I want to take notes over this or not, but I'll definitely flip through it and maybe read the whole thing. Trigonometric Fourier series, orthogonal systems, and a bunch of things. Operations on Fourier series, summation of trig Fourier series. Bessel functions. Let's see what's in here. Flip through it. I have seen some Fourier analysis before. I'm not going into this course completely blind, but I definitely need to... Okay, I know what that is. I definitely need to brush up on this stuff. Schwarz's inequality, yep. We used that on the qualifying exam. Oh, this chapter is definitely going to be useful for the homework he gave. Okay, this book has just become goated. I can tell. Uniformly convergent. Alright, so this book was a good pickup. So, it was just hanging around the office. I don't know whose book it is. It was on a shelf. I didn't steal someone's book, but it was on a shelf. And, you know, it's here. If they want it back, I can give it back to them. But it was on a shelf of books that no one ever uses. I don't know whose it was. And then the other book on Fourier analysis, this big one, I looked through it. It's got 800 pages or something crazy in it. This book was given to me, like borrowed. He let me borrow it from a potential PhD advisor. I spoke with 2 people this week, as I mentioned. And I talked to the first guy for about an hour. The second guy I didn't get much time to talk to because I had to teach like 15 minutes later. And when I mentioned that I was taking Fourier analysis with so-and-so, he goes, that's good. He'll teach you a lot. And he let me borrow this book so that I could read through it. This book is probably going to take me a long time to read through if I decide to take notes over it, because it is 800 pages. Generally speaking, I'm a pretty fast reader, but 800 pages is a lot, and to get through the whole thing is kind of... Well, I mean, just look at it here. You can see what subjects they're talking about. I mean, up here you can see chapter 10 ends in the neighborhood of 830. And then it has like several appendices afterwards. So this book may go up to 1,000 pages. I don't know. I don't know. But he was nice. He let me borrow the book. Yeah, I remember seeing this. There's a lot of familiar concepts from measure theory here. Some stuff I think looks familiar from preparing for qual. Minkowski's integral inequality. I think I remember that. It's one of the last things we did. Heisenberg group. You know, I know that's a Breaking Bad reference, but I don't understand. You gotta understand, when you're in graduate school, pop culture doesn't really filter in at all. It's been like 10 years since I've been keeping up with television, which we don't even call it television anymore, do we? We all stream on Netflix and HBO Max. Young's inequality. Okay, so it looks like the first chapter here is your standard real analysis with some extra stuff in here. This book looks pretty thorough from the looks of it. 1,000 pages. This is going to be quite the challenge to read through it. I don't know if I want to read through it. These 2 books, from what I've seen just a little bit of, I think is probably a good idea to go through these 2 books. This one, maybe just skim through it, read it, select certain chapters, I don't know. Let's put these up here. Let's see, what's the last 2 books? The second guy I spoke with mentioned information theory. He says it was an interesting topic that people in the department are looking into at the moment. He said that it was related to probability theory. It's the reason why he brought it up to me, because he asked me what I was interested in. And, you know, I really liked the probability theory course that I was taking. But I also liked functional analysis and I think convex geometry, which is the next topic I'm going to show, was also interesting. But you kind of have to, if you want to work with faculty members, you kind of have to do research in the subjects that they're interested in, because it's what they know. If you pick something completely unrelated to what they're doing, it may be very difficult to finish, your PhD. Everyone's got to work together. Entropy, channel capacity, Kolmogorov complexity, a bunch of stuff that I don't know, but apparently there's probability theory in here somewhere. Gambling and data compression. Oh yeah. That's right down my lane. Yeah, I did go to a casino last summer. I ended up losing more money than I won, but I don't really know how to play those games that they have in Vegas. I really just wanted the experience of pulling the, what's it called, slot machine crank. It looked fun. Information theory and the stock market, inequalities and information theory. So yeah, the guy told me not to read the book, but just like skim through it and figure out, just understand what the subject is and then decide if it's something that you want to pursue. And I have heard the guys around the department mention this subject, but I don't know, I don't really know what it is. Just that they seem to be interested in it at the moment. Relationship between entropy and mutual information. A function f is concave is negative f is convex. Well, at least the definitions are easy to read and understand. Whatever. So I probably won't read the book, but I'll definitely look through it. And then there's this Barvanok book, which has been sitting on my table for like several months. I had to go back to the library and renew it because I've been wanting to read this book. And I wanted to understand more about convex geometry because one of the guys I'm talking to does pretty much all of his research in that area. I wanted to understand convexity better. Like, I know definitions and just basic stuff about it, but I wanted to read this book and just do some problems from it, because the problems in here are not super challenging, but there are some problems in here that make you think. I like the easy problems personally, but whatever. You got to do the hard stuff eventually. So this book, we'll flip through it. I got this book from the library. No one handed me this book. I already mentioned that, short-term memory loss. And I'm still stuck in the freaking first chapter because the first chapter is like 40 pages. And I wanted to move on to the next chapter and just do something else. And surprisingly, there's a lot of convexity goes beyond the scope of just geometry, because you can talk about convexity in vector spaces. And, vector spaces can be weird looking. They can be like the space of continuous functions on the unit interval, for example. You can talk about convex sets there. And it gets kind of interesting. We can see how many pages there are. But I'm almost done with the first chapter. I'm taking this. The reason it's taking so long is because this book, I'm reading through this book and I'm taking notes over it, and I'm logging the notes in here somewhere. I don't think my notebook's on my table. And I'm also doing some problems. And I'm doing this all on my own because, again, I'm taking a convex geometry course, and I'd rather not take notes in class. I just want to listen to the guy talk and study what's on the board, because I can't think and write at the same time, apparently. At least not when I'm in class taking notes. So, to supplement it, I'll just read this book. But yeah, these first couple sections are not that bad. They're pretty straightforward. And then you get into like this stuff slowed me down a little bit. There's a problem up here that I played with a little bit and lost interest. And then there were 2 problems in here that bugged me that I couldn't do. And I've been thinking about them. It's not on this page. Which page is it on? It's not on this page. I'll show it to you guys if you want to look at it. Okay, here it is. It's 2 and 3. I have them circled. The problems are to construct an example of compact non-convex sets and real numbers such that the sum of alpha I times the characteristic function of AI. So the brackets mean characteristic function or indicator function, whichever you prefer, is equal to 0, but the sum of alpha I TAI, characteristic function, is not equal to 0, where T is a linear transformation. So it's a very simple statement, and I read it, and I was like, oh, that's easy. And then I played with it a little bit, and then I was having, I don't know why, I was just having trouble come up with an example. And the same thing for number 3. I didn't look at 3 because I was stuck on 2. And I don't know why I came up, I'm not sure why I was struggling to come up with the example. So I might go to my instructors and bring it to them and see, you know, how easy the problem really is. I was thinking about that today because I spent an embarrassing amount of time trying to figure it out, and I ultimately got nowhere. And I was thinking about it because I don't mind not being able to solve really hard problems, and I don't mind not making any progress on trying to solve a problem that's never been solved, because that's normal. You know, you tackle a problem, you don't get anywhere with it. And in my mind, it's like, well, I mean, no one else was able to get anywhere with it either. So I don't feel bad about myself. The problems that upset me is when I get a problem that's supposed to be really easy and other people can do it, but for some reason I can't see the solution. And I know I need to be able to see the solution, or at least figure it out in a reasonable amount of time. And it's important not to get frustrated, but sometimes you can't help yourself. A real vector space spanned by the indicator functions is a polyhedron. Oh, wait a minute. Real vector space spanned by the indicator functions of P repeats polyhedron. It's called the algebra of polyhedra and is denoted as PRD. Interesting. And then we have chapter 2, faces and extreme points. Anyway, that's enough of this book. So, what can I say in the next 2 minutes before the video ends? Not really much. I kind of said everything I wanted to say. So I'm taking Fourier analysis, special topic course. I'm taking convex geometry. I'm taking a seminar, and I'm taking the stats course, which I don't have my stats material with me at the moment. I hope this semester goes very well. My plan is to just talk to as many people as I can and figure out what they're doing and decide what kind of project I'm going to tackle. It's probably, as far as who my advisor is going to be, it's probably going to be this one guy that studies convex geometry. And when we start working on it together, whatever project I end up working on, I would like to have at least maybe 2 weeks or at the most 3 weeks of just doing nothing, just to breathe and relax and just, you know, because I know once this project gets started, it's going to be like every single day working on it, meeting with the advisor, and trying to finish in a reasonable amount of time. I asked him when candidacy is. So if you don't know, candidacy means you've pretty much figured out what you want to do, and then you go before a committee. You give a talk on it. I'm not entirely sure what they're expecting of me in the talk, because I get different answers depending on who I ask and what it looks like. But there's a committee, and they ask you questions about the topic, and if you demonstrate competency at that meeting, And then they give you the green light and say, okay, you've passed candidacy, which means that you don't have to take any more classes. We will pay for you to teach for us. And outside of that, you just do research. So you do research, you teach, and you don't have to take classes, and life is good. Before candidacy, they encourage you to take classes more and do that kind of stuff. So everyone wants to pass candidacy. So that's like the new qualifier exam. We'll put it that way. Step 1's over. Qualifying exams, they're done. Step 2 is candidacy, and then that's done. And then once candidacy is done, you do the PhD. Or, you finish the dissertation, and then you ship it off. And I asked him, like, when do you do the candidacy? Is there like a set date that they want you to do it, like the qualifier? And the guy I was talking to said, you do it whenever you want. So if you do it like the day before you print the paper and submit it to a journal, you can do that. Do you want to do that? That's a whole entirely different story. So anyway, that's what happened this week.